Joining us now, Dr. Robert Perkins. He is an expert on racial injustices and murders that took place before the riots, which sparked them in the first place. He is with Norfolk State University, which I pass all the time because I live in Chesapeake. He's their graduate programs coordinator. He's also a sociology professor and former chair of the Department of Sociology, and he's with us now. Dr. Perkins, great to have you, sir.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Now, I understand that you were on Kiera's radio show when she had a show at Norfolk State University. Is that? Can you confirm that rumor, sir?
I can confirm that rumor. Kiera, as we call her, Kilo, is awesome.
What did you call her?
We called her Kilo. She didn't tell you?
No! Kilo! Thank you.
Yes, that was her nickname here in Norfolk.
Kilo. Well, if it's good enough for you in Norfolk, it's good enough for me. So as of now, we're going to start calling her Kilo. I love that. Kilo. Excellent.
Yeah.
Dr. Perkins, we have a lot going on right now. We have riots, we have looting, protests. We've got the city council in Minneapolis wants to eliminate the police department in a new test in its entirety. I think they're going to vote on that today. Give us a summation, Dr. Perkins, of what you're seeing now. What is going on?
Well, there's much unrest in America and in the world. What is happening now is the eradication of racism in America in a way that has never been addressed before. I heard your previous segment with the lady talking about K through 12 schools, and I do think that it's a function of many different social institutions that have culminated to this point. So we can look at different isolated incidents, but the real problem is the greater picture of America. And there is a historic component in which we have talked about exhaustively in America, but we've never really attacked the issue, the underground, the undergirth, the ugliness of racism. And I think what is happening now is people say, wait a minute, I can't avoid it anymore. This is in my face. This is to a place where I can't deny that it's happening. And the videos that we have seen from recent murders of African-American males unarmed, struggling for their lives, has touched the heart of many, if not most Americans, but more importantly, it touched a nerve in American society where we have to now question, is this us? Is this America? Is this the way we want to be?
When you talk about that level of racism, I have to be honest, Dr. Perkins, I was equally appalled and shocked by what appeared to have been a lynching in South Georgia. It certainly didn't get the attention that this has gotten, because this was an officer of the law. But, people that just go out in a pickup truck and shoot unarmed black males because they thought he was robbing them, first of all. I mean, it's just beyond me what is in people's minds with this. Now that especially in Washington, D.C., the looting has quelled and, now we're having peaceful protests, Dr. Perkins. I know you've been studying this and talking about it a very long time. How do you change it?
Well, I think that's the million-dollar question. But first, let me back up just a little. I noticed that you put the looting and the protesters in the same sentence,
yep.
But they're not one and the same. I think it's important for us as respectable, responsible citizens to address the issue as honestly as we can, and based on facts. As a matter of fact, the majority of those that was rioting and looting, if not all of them, according to the city officials, were from out of town. So these were just menaces in society, and they need to be arrested and prosecuted.
Thank you.
But what we do need to focus on is the protesters. And I am in awe of the stamina, the tenacity of these protesters fighting for justice. And I think we need to continue to fight. Now, how do we stop it? We stop it at its core. And I think for the first time in America, at least in my lifetime, and I'll be 50 this year, I think that we are seeing a change. And let me tell you where the change is coming from that is different from history. And that is that white Americans are now speaking up. White Americans are now saying, I get it. Now, I want to be very cautious how I say that, because white Americans have always, or some white Americans have always stood on the right side of justice, on the right side of history in terms of racial equality. So I'm not overlooking that point. But what I'm saying now I'm hearing from a segment of the population that never addressed that issue before, that never took a stance about racial injustice before, that never articulated and understood Black people's pain and plight. I'm now hearing from people that never addressed racial inequality, wanting to learn more about it. I'm getting calls from colleagues from Iowa. I'm getting calls from former students. And I'm getting calls from friends or associates that I had in my past that are white that saying, wait a minute, I didn't realize it was this bad. They did not know. And so, and my response is always, I don't know how you didn't know. I just don't know how you didn't know. But then I had to realize, as many degrees as I have, what I didn't have is a bird's eye view on every person's lived experience. Mm-hmm. So if your lived experiences were very different from my lived experiences, mm-hmm. and very different from how I matriculate in society, then how would you know? Mm-hmm. They were taken for granted on both sides of the fence. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I accepted the invitation to come onto your radio show today was because 2 weeks ago I said to myself, both sides of the political spectrum, and I'm talking about the extreme side, need to come to the table and talk. We need to listen to each other. We need mm-hmm. to hear each other. Mm-hmm. And we need to hear each other with an open heart. Mm-hmm. Now, and I also heard your comments about, I forgot his name, Breeze, the football player.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have to disagree with you, if I may, and I want to do this respectfully.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And what I disagreed was when you said that he had to backtrack because he got Pompeo.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's not why he should have backtracked, or at least that's not why I understood him to backtrack. What I understood him to say in his apology was, I didn't get it until I got those direct messages from my teammates, from people that I love, from Black people that I respect and admire. Mm-hmm. Because he was still under, and he didn't, I don't believe he's racist. He's not a racist. He's not a racist guy. Mm-hmm. Not at all. But he didn't understand still that it is not okay to just make Black men and Black women invisible mm-hmm. in their contributions to America. Mm-hmm. So while he's highlighting his grandfathers and his father's, I believe, military experience, he actually made Black people experience in the military disappear. Mm-hmm. So I applaud him for learning from that experience and being willing to grow from that experience. And I think that is a great lesson that we all can have in America, all of us. May I give a quick example?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, sir. Let me just reintro you for those that have just joined us here on the John Fredericks Radio Network. We're with Dr. Robert Perkins. He has studied racial injustices for a very long time. He's also from Norfolk State University. He is the coordinator of graduate programs there. He's a sociology professor and a former department chair of sociology at Norfolk State University. Go ahead, Dr. Perkins.
Thank you. I have, when I went to graduate school at Iowa State University, my best friend was an Asian man. And one day we were chit-chatting, and I said something about Oriental. I think I might have said I never went to an Oriental restaurant. I don't know what it was, but I used the term Oriental. And he drew back. And he said, oh, my God, I can't believe you said that. I was like, what did I say? He said, you used the term Oriental. I said, what's wrong with that term? He said, that's a derogatory term for us Chinese people. And I said, oh, my God, I didn't know. I said, I grew up in Virginia, and we always use that term when referring to restaurants, rugs, all the stuff. It's just a term we always use. And I apologized to him. I didn't understand it. I didn't know it. But guess what I did do? I learned from it. Mm-hmm. Now, that term still doesn't haunt me. It doesn't hurt me. But I knew that term hurt him and his family and his culture. And that was good enough for me to say, I'll never use the term again because it impacted him, although it still didn't impact me that way. Mm-hmm.
That's a compelling story. I, quite frankly, had never thought of it that way. And you're right. We say go to an Oriental restaurant, get an Oriental rug. That's just part of the regular vernacular. And until someone calls you out on it, you really don't even realize that somebody might be offended by that. So I'm going to get back to the question I did, and I appreciate your perspective on Drew Brees. But let's get back to the solution. Minneapolis' solution is to eliminate their police department. Okay, well, I certainly wouldn't go there if that was to be the case. I don't think that's the answer. I mean, what can we do? What would you propose, sir?
Yeah, and I also read that with them dismantling well, at least that's a recommendation of some of the city council members.
Right.
I would love to hear what that means or what that would look like. To be honest with you, that's a thought that has never crossed my mind, and I don't think there's ever any literature that has such a proposal. I can't imagine a city or urban area without a police department, but that doesn't mean that it's not doable. I just would love to hear exactly what their thoughts are, what their plans are, and what they're proposing that this new structure would look like. My solution in terms of, you're talking about in general in terms of racism in America or just the killings of African Americans by police? Which are you talking?
Well, I think we're having a larger discussion here. I mean, certainly, look, what happened in Minneapolis, for everybody to see that is just horrific, and that guy should, I don't know if they have the death penalty in Minnesota, but I'm not sure if there was, a judge wouldn't give him that. I mean, the guy, he just murdered the George Floyd. He just murdered him in cold blood. I mean, it was a horrific scene. So the larger picture is what you're saying is people have to understand the level of racism in the country. How do we do that? How do we get to a better place?
Yes. We get to a better place by opening up our hearts. First of all, it is a systematic, oppressive society. We get that. And we do know that there are protocols in place to protect people from discrimination, racism, all that. We get that as well. So the problem is individual hearts and perpetuating a cycle of violence, a cycle of vitriol, a cycle of oppression between each other. So this is something that we have to deal with as individuals. And that's what I was saying a little bit earlier about making a decision of how we want our world to be, how we want America to be. Do we want America to be racist or not? That's where we are. So we have to search ourselves, each individual, and then we have to put into practice what we want to see. For example, the education system, since that was a hot button issue a few moments ago. Now, that's one person's experience. My experience was very different. And I can articulate my experience as being in a majority African-American class and how it was great. And my K-12 experience was good. That's my experience. But what is true is that as a college professor, there is an overwhelming amount of time I have to spend on preparing students to think collegially with their critical thinking and skills and training. So K-12 is not doing its job. But what I also understood or I have learned is that it's not as much about race as it is about class. And so if we attack these issues, we have to attack them, yes, systematically as well as individually and looking at all structures in society. Now, will we ever come out of this racialized free? No, because the very foundation of America is racism. Can we come out of this thing better and being better Americans and understanding plight of each other's race based on race? Yes. But the first thing we have to know is to really educate ourselves. We have to understand that this is not a biological issue. Race is not biological. It's a social construct. So just as we have socialized ourselves to believe that one race is better, more intelligent, have the best ideas, that is all a social construct. That is not real. It's not true.
Right.
So we have to unsocialize ourselves in that same way, and that's why I meant about the individualized perspective being challenged.
All right, I'm going to read a text here, Dr. Perkins, from one of our listeners, okay?
Yes,
because we get all sides on, all right? This is Sandra in Chesterfield. Sandra says, "Good morning, John. Sandra here in North Chesterfield again. I hear the usual hypocrisy of the left from your guest. Was he all upset about the 14 black people killed by other black people in Chicago over Memorial Day weekend? Was he concerned about the 28 black people shot who are now in the hospital? And if some folks are truly concerned about racism and other things in the country, why then do they associate themselves with the Democratic Party, which has failed them for 50 years? We already know that." Respond to that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I appreciate the question, and I also appreciate the boldness of the question, because these are the dialogues that needs to happen.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. It's interesting that the person said, I can't remember, did he say,
Sandra.
"Why am I not concerned?" or "Am I concerned?" How did the question go? Because if they're asking, "Why am I not concerned?"
What are you upset about? Are you upset about there were 47 black people shot over the weekend in Chicago, 19 died. And that is nowhere in the news. Are you upset about that? That's her question.
Yes, I am. I'm absolutely upset. I'm heartbroken. But this is a bell that Robert Perkins, myself, has been ringing for years about Chicago and the murders there. As a matter of fact, I had some very strong words and recommendation how to curb that violence, and people thought I was a little too radical with my suggestion. I'm heartbroken about it. I don't think that any American city should be a war zone. Any community should be a war zone. Any neighborhood should be a war zone. And so whatever we need to do to cure these ills, we need to do it, and we need to do it quickly. So if the question is, am I upset? Yes, I am upset. I am virtually upset. I am tired of seeing black bodies dead, period. However, that does not excuse away the behavior of policing. It does not. These are two separate issues. These are two absolute, and they deserve different attention. And when you talk about, because I believe that the question really goes to black-on-black crime. So when we look at black-on-black crime, and you look at it comparatively to other races, you would see they are very little different in terms of the number of black-on-black, number of people who have died from black-on-black crime is probably 5%, only 5% higher than the number of white people that have died from white-on-white crime, Asian on Asian crime, so forth and so on. So the fact that it is black-on-black crime is not the real problem. The fact is that people are dying in the streets, and we need to do something about it. Why? Then she asked about the Republican Party. What the question is, why I don't support the Republican Party, or why do African Americans overwhelmingly support Democratic Party? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, guess the question is, you have Democratic leadership in Chicago. You got people getting shot every single weekend. Nobody seems to do anything. You've got Democratic leadership all over the place in these cities that have failed Black America. Just before you, Kimberly Lowe was on, a teacher in Roanoke, who said that administration there in a predominantly African American school that she was at, middle school, had to change grades so the kids could just get to high school, and then they get to the school to prison pipeline. And so I don't want to bring politics in this, but I mean, you do have to ask the question, like, what I mean, the policies have failed. There's no question, Dr. Perkins, what you're saying is this is an opportunity for everybody to try to figure out why this is happening, what happened in Minnesota, and also what happened in Brunswick, Georgia. I mean, that's gotten pushed off the pages. I mean, that was just two guys went out in a pickup truck and shot somebody on the street. That's a lynching, for God's sake. It's 2020, sir. It's unbelievable to me. I guess the question is, again, where do we go from here? I got to take off because we're running out of time. But first of all, we need to have the kind of dialogue that you and I and Kiera just have. Kiera, do you want to weigh in here, or should I call you Kilo?
Ha ha ha. I had to use a radio name because I was on the radio. Thank you, Dr. Perkins, for weighing in. I think this conversation is needed, especially on this platform. So you said everything that needs to be said, and I'm excited for the rest of the show.
Dr. Perkins, thanks for getting up early with us, sir. I really appreciate the dialogue. So thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for educating great graduates like Kilo Johnson. She's done a fine job for us, and as she knows, I'm a big fan of HBCU colleges. The last three producers I've had have all come out of HBCU colleges. Just happenstance. I mean, I don't go find them. They just happenstance. All of them have been fabulous for our company, and sometimes it just works out that way.